Off we go. It's the 19th of January, 2021. G'day, everyone. It's Crafty from Craftworks Distillery, and this is Aussie Craft Distillers Shooting the Shit. And we've got a special guest tonight, which I'll talk about shortly. So first of all, let's go around the room and who's here from the Australian side. So we have the Todd, my right-hand man from Craftworks. G'day, Todd.
G'day, guys. Nice to see you online.
How you going? All good your side?
All good on my side.
Excellent. All right, then we switch over to Luke from Local Nerd, who is the engine room behind Aussie Craft Distillers Shooting the Shit. G'day, Luke.
Hello.
How are you going?
Very good. Looking forward to tucking into a lovely Islay dram.
Oh, yes, and you've just given it away, what we're doing tonight, and that's all good.
I think that was in the title. I think that was in the title, and maybe all the posts that I've done.
Maybe one or two posts.
All over the whiskey forums.
They might have seen it. Yes, I think you're right. Anyway, and we move on to our guests tonight. So for Aussie Craft Distillers Shooting the Shit tonight, we are going to Islay. And we are talking to someone who lives on Islay, knows the people of Islay, and loves the Islay whiskey, as well as other Scottish whiskies. So, without further ado, I'd like to bring in Rachel McNeil from the Islay Whisky Academy. Rachel, you there?
Hello, Crafty. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Rachel. Happy New Year. Yes, this is
welcome to Islay.
Yeah, well, this is going to be good because, as you would know, Islay's normally swamped with people from all around the world on pilgrimage to Islay to experience Islay whiskey and what Islay has to offer. So they're not doing it right now. So this could give us all a bit of an insight to what's happening in Islay. What's the go now? I mean, it's all on our social media feeds, and there's a lot of whiskey fans in Australia who love whiskies from Islay. So, Rachel, why don't you give us a rundown on what it was like pre-COVID? Just say 6 months prior, pre-COVID, to what is it like now, and what's the ins and outs? What's going on in Islay?
Okay, Crafty. Well, first of all, it's the morning here, so I might not be as awake as the rest of you guys, but I'm getting there because I've got my breakfast Lafroig to keep me going.
What are you drinking, Rachel? Which Lafroig is it?
I thought go big or go home. So to kick off the morning, I've got Casper Lafroig.
Nice.
It's I don't know what Lafroig would think about calling it a breakfast whiskey, but I would say this is a special occasion, and also this is our New Year dram together. So
it is indeed. Slanja.
Perfect breakfast whiskey.
Perfect evening whiskey.
Hey guys, well, as you know, Islay are very busy. What we have is no season. We have people all the time, but it's different kinds of visitors. So in the shoulder ends of the year, it's your whiskey geeks, guys like yourselves, people who come and they are usually in groups of friends, not particularly with family at the shoulder ends of the year. They're here to buy lots of bottles, stuff them all in their suitcases, take them home. In the summer, we have a different kind of visitor. So it's more family people. They might go to the distilleries. They might take some children if they're allowed, because you have to be over 8 to go to a distillery usually. It's a different a vibe of a visitor, but we don't really have a season in that it starts in March and ends in October anymore. It's constant because people come They want to come for New Year. There's people
Right.
even come for Christmas. You know, so the year is constant, but it changes. The demographic changes moving through the year. So up until March, our lockdown last year, that was kind of what was happening, and it's been building that we've had no season, so we've had no rest in the winter. It's been constant, you know. Then came COVID and lockdown and zero.
Right.
But for us, certainly the first lockdown, I mean, this is kind of a secret, but I did not speak to one Islay person that didn't love it. It was phenomenal because it was peace. There was no chemtrails in the sky. The birds were singing. There was no vehicles on the road. It went back to like our childhood times. And people just loved it because it was so unusual. It was like held in suspended animation. So although there was no income, you had this amazing, unusual experience. And the weather was fantastic here. So people were out doing their gardens, mending their houses. We could only go, I think it was a 5-mile radius from our houses, but because everybody lives near the shore or a hill or the woods or something, it was, people could go walking, so people were outside a lot. So everybody chilled right down and calmed, and it was actually, it was lovely, right? But then, so then we thought it would start coming back a bit in the summer, late summer, but the distilleries were not able to offer what they did previously. I mean, you could come to the distilleries, but you know, small groups, you couldn't have large groups. A lot of them were only offering certain tours, not the normal, because there used to be very, very expensive, exclusive experiences that I would organise for my guests and students. But these things were, it was all muddled, Crafty. Then what happened was we are now into another lockdown. So Scotland, England, Ireland and Wales, I think, are all in lockdown 4, but the Western Isles, which we are, Islay's the most southern of the Western Isles, we're in lockdown 3, but there's no distilleries open, no hotels open. We're not allowed to visit each other's homes, I don't think, until it's going to go in maybe until 2 weeks in February or something like that. So it's all very static and it's a bit strange, really. We're starting to miss everybody now. We're missing you guys. It was like a holiday for us first time, Crafty and all of it. But now I'm a bit like that. Oh, sick of it now.
I think in some ways it was a bit like that here in the first lockdown. People slowed down because they couldn't do a lot, so it was a forced slowdown. And you talk to certain people, and they were like, "This is really quite enjoyable. You know, I get to do different things." But of course, as it's gone on, and where we are right now, it's challenging times all around, and puts a lot of challenges on businesses all over the place.
For sure. And also because it's January here, our weather is not very good. See, the first lockdown, it was a fantastic spring and it was lovely. The weather was lovely, but just now it's not very good. And I mean, it's in Islay, we're very privileged because we're sort of in a cocoon. It's you know, it's easier for us, I would say, because imagine if you lived in Glasgow in the city, in the middle of the city or something, and this lockdown and it's dark. I mean, this morning when I got up to come on with you, it was dark because I'm in a different routine to normal. So normally you would be up at 7 o'clock out, you know, busy. But now I'm like that. Oh, I'll just get up when it's nice and light. I'm not, you know, I've got a lot more relaxed routine now because you're just doing a thing, you know, so you can schedule your day any way that suits you. So, you know, people, and if it's raining, Crafty, you know, folk can't get outside. So I think people are going to struggle a lot more in this lockdown in Scotland, certainly, or maybe in the Northern Hemisphere with the light, you know, the lack of light. because
the lack of light
people, yep, affects people.
So
right. That's the situation. So we're just, I mean, I've had to cancel 2 academies. So my academy last October was cancelled and moved forward to this March.
Yeah.
So I just moved everybody. I made that decision last year. I thought, yep, we'll just move it to March. And then I don't know when we got the feeling, even the March one. So the March one's been rescheduled to October. So that's 2 full academies that I've missed.
Wow. Oh no. Well, let's talk about the Islay Whisky Academy. Let's talk about what actually is the Islay Whisky Academy. It's your brainchild, I believe. You've put it all together, and I've known you a few years now, and I've seen the work that you've put into it. Just explain what you do, and sort of take it back to pre-COVID days. You know, what was it, how you launched it, and go into a bit of detail on it from a education standpoint. You know, dealing with other distilleries and that, and how it all works.
Okay. Thanks, Crafty. Right. Okay. So the Islay Whisky Academy grew out of my brand that I made years and years ago, maybe about 15 years ago, called Whisky for Girls.
Yeah.
Whisky for Girls was the first brand or the first website to pay attention to the audience of women in relation to whisky, because it's not that women were stupid about whisky or anything. It was that they didn't maybe know, because nobody took the time to explain it. And it wasn't just for women, because I started and I called it Whisky for Girls, right? And then I was blethering Jim McEwen about it, and he says, Rachel, I'm excluded by this company. I'm excluded. And I said, oh my God, I exclude Jim. So it's Whisky for Girls and Guys in brackets. So it's all inclusive. It's all inclusive. So anyway, it started in that, but it was like a way of talking about whisky in connection to other things, maybe about music. It wasn't the normal or conventional distillery website vibe. It was a different vibe to the website, and just so that was interesting. But I was still doing my normal life when I did that. That was like a kind of it was just a kind of side thing that I was doing it because I enjoyed it. And then I decided I was going to run like whisky tours and tours of Islay to bring people to come here and share with them. So I constructed, each tour was individual to the person or the group of people, and they were completely hosted. And also, so like I would take into account the level of the people and curate the tours from the distilleries that would match in. I would think about where they would stay to maximize the best use of their time. And then when we would be driving about, I would be talking and telling them all stuff about the distilleries. And then I realized people really, really liked this, and they actually even wanted to learn more. So I thought, well, why don't I put together like a whisky school for a week, and work with the distilleries, work with theoretical educational lectures. So what we do is we have in blocks of a week, it's called the residential diploma. So you come here, we host you. It's like a package. There's the school and there's the accommodation all included. So in the morning we lectures, and it goes through it's very practical. It goes through the distilling process. So and it's different every year, because I don't want to be repetitive. I want it to be living and growing. So we have maybe a focus on water, because people weren't really teaching folk about that. That would only be if you were in the industry, you could come and learn about water and how it affected production. Then we do maybe about yeast. So lecturers will come in the morning, people will sit. So when we had the last one I ran was Dr. Graham Walker, who is the man that teaches the people at Heriot Watt. And he, because I invite all these people and I say, would you like to come and teach at the academy? And I say to them, it's not, I don't like it being, you just come and do your lecture and then you go away. I say, come join with us for the rest, you know, for a couple of days, you know, be my guest, have fun with the students. So all these people come to teach my students because they come and they have fun themselves. It's not just a job. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so
they're bringing their passion with it.
Yes. And like I say, bring your wife, bring your husband, you know, whatever, you know, and then so we do lectures in the morning, Crafty, and then we do in the afternoon, we go to a distillery and we learn the corresponding thing that we've learned in the morning in a practical sense. So we focus on, so for instance, when we were doing water, so then we went to Bruichladdich because they've got the well, you know, for the Octomore Spring.
Up the top.
Yeah, so we took, so we go and maybe to see James Brown and he takes them down to the well. So there's the theory, then there's the tricky wee bit, and then there's the practical in the distillery. So they learn, like, so from Adam Hannett or, you know, Alan Logan, I'll really give them in depth in the afternoon. And then at night we have events. So for instance, we would have the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, my great friend John McChain.
Right.
They'll host a dinner and a tasting. And you know, people can attend these are the, what do you call it, if they want to go. It's not part of the course, you know, they can attend if they want. So we host these things. There's, so like the boss, Mr. McEwen, always hosts a special event. It might be a Q&A, private Q&A session, or you might do a tasting or something, just whatever. And so folk are invited to attend that. So when everybody attends that. What else do we do? It's like one time we had a fantastic dinner with a Dalmore distillery. So it's not just Islay at night.
Right.
People will come in and do things for us. So it goes through the week like that. And how I choose the distilleries is when I send out my email saying, this is the week. Whoever gets back first, then I just, because obviously there's only 5 days. So in the we're going to choose 5 distilleries. But what we do is we invite our guests to come the day before, and then they have a big presentation dinner on the Friday night, you know, and then they get their certificate because there's an exam on the Friday.
Yeah.
And then they're invited to stay with us until the Saturday. But what happens is quite a lot of people will stay longer at Crafty and visit maybe the other distilleries that weren't part of the course.
Right.
So they might come early or stay late. I mean, they do that under their own steam, but I'll help them organise things. So that's the basis of the diploma. So we are hoping, just now what we've been doing is we've been running it in the Gaelic College, which is just outside the village.
Yes.
Beautiful, renovated old, it used to be a hospital. Anyway, we are hoping this year that we're going to have our own venue, which is so exciting. So that I'm hoping that's going to happen. And once we have our own venue, Crafty, then we will do the diploma maybe once a month, because at the moment I was only doing it once or twice a year. So I'm going to, and then we'll have a whole program of events for people when we have our own venue. So it'll be a lot more that we can share a lot more and do a lot more things with people. So that'll be very exciting.
Wow.
So that's, sorry,
I was going to say, so it sounds like the distilleries on Islay are behind it. They want to be involved in it.
Certainly.
Yeah.
The biggest supporters are I would say, Bruichladdich are fantastic. You know, they're really fantastic. Coleman are good. Lafroig, John Campbell is fantastic. Arbeg are fantastic. We usually have Arbeg on the last day because the first one I ever did, and the Friday, it was marketing, and you know, because that's part of production. Because if you don't market your product, no one will know about you. So because Ardbeg always did this amazing witty marketing, you know, they're about the only distillery I feel that does a witty, apart from yourself, but I mean, in Islay, you know, it's humorous. The market is humorous, you know. So, like for instance, when they did the, let me think now, was it the Grooves dram, and they did it, and it was like what was that festival in the 60s in America? You know, the hippie festival. It's famous.
Woodstock.
Yes. So it was like Woodstock, and Mickey was dressed up as a hippie, and they were all dressed up, and they had this man walking about all day, and he had a wee square sign, you know, and he was a wee bit older gentleman. Obviously, he could have been at Woodstock, you know, because of the age, and he was walking about with this sign. And Woodstock was all about love and peace, you know, from the hippie time. And the wee sign said, "Give Pete a chance." Because in the Woodstock, they were all with the wee sign saying, "Give Pete a chance." So, you know, I like Ardbeg for that. So we always go to Ardbeg on the Friday, and Jackie creates, and Mickey, but Mickey's not there now. You know, there's a new manager at Lafroig. It's Colin Gordon. He used to be a new manager at Ardbeg. He used to be the manager at Lagavulin.
All right.
Mickey's retired now. Yeah. So what else? Who else? Ardnahoe, fantastic support. Benahaven, yes. The Diageos, a wee bit. Balmoral, a great support as well. Yes, but we're I think maybe. I think Diageo might change, because now they're creating a thing called the Johnny Walker Experience at Kalila. So maybe they'll be more on board. I mean, they're not, of course, they're not unsupportive, you know. But everybody else comes forward with support, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. No, I understand. So. Just on, I was just thinking back as you were talking there. I visited Islay in I think it was 2009, and it was for the annual whiskey festival, which I always pronounce it wrong. So can you tell me how to pronounce it?
Fish, Islay. Islay, yeah. So when it's written, you've got fish. I think the fish has got so fish, it's the F-E-I-S, and it's got a grav on it because it's an extended vowel. So it's fish, fish, and the I-S is sh, so it's fish, and then it's Islay. Islay is Islay, so the I-L-E, so it's Islay, and the I is extended. That's a long vowel, so it's Islay, and the E is short.
Yeah.
So in the past, we used to have a grav and an acute to show that the E was short, but they don't use it. They don't use that one now. They just use the extended one. So it's Fish Islay.
Fish Islay.
That's it. Yeah.
I think I'll stick with the annual whiskey festival. It's easier.
It's probably also easier after a few drams as well.
Fish Islay.
Yes, you get into the glass, you'll be able just to say it instinctively.
Fish Islay. So when I went to it was the 2009 Fish Islay.
Yeah.
I had a fantastic experience. So I was there on my own. And I remember coming off, I flew from Glasgow, and I got off the plane, walked out of the airport and thought, where's the taxi rank? There was no taxi rank.
It's so sophisticated.
It was cold, it was windy, and I had no idea. But it was sort of set the tone for the whole trip. It was a deep exploration into what Islay was about. And I was just amazed with the people and everything. But one thing was, it was like the United Nations of whiskey drinkers.
Sure.
It was particularly Lagavulin. It was the first one that I went to that I noticed it. It was just everybody was so passionate to be there, to take the pilgrimage, to come to Islay and to experience the Fishila. Why do you think it is such a magical thing? Why do you think it is a pilgrimage to whiskey lovers? Even if you're not a peated whiskey lover, there's a lot of people that go to Islay just to experience it and try the different whiskies. Where does that come from? What's so special?
Well, I think, Crafty, I think a lot of it's to do with nowadays so many people don't live where they come from. They're not, their lives are not enclosed in their family or their original community. And I think when people come here, they kind of fall in, like you did, to this enclosed community that is many people who were brought up here and lived here, and it's a network of knowledge and support. It's like there's people that live on the land, and there's people that live in the land, so you live vertical or horizontal. Horizontal people are just that folk that dot about and don't really connect. But I think because we, until the whiskey kind of fashion boom, I would say in the last 25 years, we were an undiscovered island. No one knew where it was. Everybody knew where Skye was, unless you were a whiskey geek, really, or a whiskey connoisseur in those days. The Italians knew, because the Italians and some of the French, but apart from that, nobody paid much heed to us. Maybe longer ago than 25 years, maybe like 30 years. And but now, so we were still quite old-fashioned, if you see what I mean. So people love that. And what I found was that people connect to the distilleries the way they would maybe to a football team or something. But then people make friends in Islay because they come to fish. And then they come back because they want to see their friends. Because there was a whiskey company one time, and they hired the Ramsey Hall in Portel for 3 days and 3 nights to run a big fancy bar with all different whiskey. And I was like, well, no one will go, because they don't come for the whiskey. They come for Islay and the island. The whiskey is kind of secondary. I mean, and now it's changed a wee bit, because what you have is people that professional flippers. I'm not personally against flippers, because people go on about it on the Facebook sites all the time, and it just bores me rigid. Because I'm for the wee guy, and I'm like that. Okay, I'm happy if a wee guy makes whatever out of one bottle. Good, that's good. But I don't, the professional people that come in and hoover up everything, they're just the same as a corporation. So I'm not I'm not so for that. And we're starting to see stuff like that happening, Crafty, because the fish and Islay is becoming a bit like, so before people came, this was a destination island for like love of it, like actual love of it, right? But now what's happening is there's a layer of fashionable people that come because it's a bucket list tick. Do you know what I mean? It's not because they absolutely love Islay. It could be, do you know what I mean? It could be Tyree. Whereas before it, people love Islay itself, Yes. So there's this other layer, but that's just because we're fashionable just now. So I mean, maybe they'll either start to love Islay, or maybe they'll just fashion away now to the rum distilleries, because rum's the new fashion. Do you know what I mean?
Rum's the new fashion. The rum renaissance, as someone says.
Oh, that's good. Yes, definitely. So I think that's got a lot to do with it. And I'll tell you a lovely wee story about that epitomizes the fish for me and Islay. So Florence Gray is our chairperson of the FAISH committee. And I interviewed her for Whisky for Girls a long time ago. And I said to Florence, what epitomizes the festival for you? What's the thing that is the most important to you? And I thought Florence would say, all the visitors that come from all over the world, or something big. I thought she would say something really big. And she said, well, I think it's when they all leave the clooty dumpling ceilidh, and when they go out the door, I put a wee bit of shortbread in their pocket and I say to them, you keep that and have that with your dram at New Year and think of your friends in Islay.
Oh,
and
wow.
I thought, that's what we are, and that's what I want us to keep. That old-fashioned hospitality. It's very traditional Scottish, but we're modern because we're connecting out to everybody from all over the world.
Yeah.
You hear more international accents in the Lochside Hotel, you know, at the festival in Islay than you will outside, nowhere outside like Glasgow, Edinburgh. You know, there's accents from all over the world here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it's like I said, it's the United Nations of whiskey lovers. It's part of the pilgrimage. I'm going to stop and pour myself a drink. So how's yours, Rachel?
What have you got tonight?
So I've got a Limeburners, which is a Western Australian, very established distillery, and this is a PX cask, and it's quite tasty, if I say so.
What age is that, Crafty? It's very pale.
It is a very light PX influence, this one. Actually, age statement, I don't think it has got an age statement. No, it doesn't have an age statement. It was a special release from an organisation here called the Whisky Club. It's a subscription service in Australia. Okay. It's a very good summer whisky, this one. It's quite refreshing. Would you not agree, Todd? He's not there?
As things switched
He's
off.
muted himself.
Ah, Todd, you muted yourself. Put yourself back on. By
accident or design?
I unmuted myself, so you didn't hear me chuckling and carrying on.
Oh, fair enough.
It's a very good whiskey, that one.
Yes, it is. So, you know what I'm drinking. So what are you drinking, Todd? And it's Australian?
It is Australian, and it's not yours. It's Coro.
Right. Which one's that?
This is a port cask.
Nice.
It's no age statement as well. It's 55%. So it's very nice.
Very nice. So Rachel, Coro is a small, I wouldn't say that small, private distillery in a little town in New South Wales called Coro, and it's in an old flour mill, and they purchased the flour mill for $1.
Wow.
Off the local council on the condition that they renovated in that, but they did a little video when they were talking about Coro. This was a couple of years ago, and they said, and we got the mill, we bought the flour mill for $1, and then you heard, yeah, but it was full of pigeon shit. which is very Australian, as you well know.
Excellent.
A great bunch of people. Yep.
Would you say in Australia then that your whiskey is more likely to be in wine casks, port casks, things like that? Have you got more? Is that more accessible to you, these kind of casks, than the bourbon casks that we use over here? Is that predominantly? Would you say people use more winey cask, brandy, port, that kind of, or not really?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix. It's definitely a mix. One of the issues we have in Australia is a lot of old fortified casks have been in hot demand, and so those casks are getting more and more expensive. So people aren't necessarily going into port casks and that. They're going into wine casks. Some are going into wine casks that are wet fill, so straight from the winery and decanted in the winery, straight to the distillery and filled straight away, which is a little bit different. One distillery of note that does that is Starwood. Starwood down in Melbourne, and Starwood's had a lot of success with that approach. But there's people, going into all sorts of wine casks. They're experimenting into fortified ports and sherries. There are people importing PX casks, Oloroso casks from Spain through importers. But there's still a fair whack of bourbon that comes into the country as well. And bourbon, there's a bit of a, it's a perception, but there's a bit of a tilt towards bourbon. People are really starting to enjoy Australian single malt whiskey in bourbon casks. And there's been conversation that, for example, there's some Tasmanians that have been doing it and going, it really works with the type of spirit that they're producing. So it's a bit of a mix. But the good thing about Australia is the limitations we have as you well know, we don't have a lot of those heavy constraints that the Scottish have. There must be a traditional form of barrel that's been used. In Australia, we don't have that. So we have distillers going into hardwoods, going into Australian hardwoods, going into Jarrah, going into red gum, I should say. So experimental, very much experimental, but it is happening.
Very exciting, Crafty. I find it very invigorating, the Australian kind of craft industry. I mean, of course, I love ours, and I don't want ours to change. We need that tradition and, to hold it like that. People can experiment, but we need to keep the parameter of it's like the champagne, what do you call it? The appellation that you get the stamp.
Yep.
I think we need that in Scotland, and the stronger that is, the better to call it single malt Scotch.
Yep.
But I think that anybody can experiment out with that, and I don't think they should be seeking to call that under the umbrella. But I don't think folks should be inhibited about doing stuff. But I think we should keep this core of Scottish, like caliber, old-fashioned style, to differentiate us in the world. I think we need to do that because of all the world whiskies that are coming through. But I do find it very interesting what you're doing in Australia, and I find your journey very interesting. How you start, and you could get your mash from someone else. So people can build up. Whereas now here, if you wanted to make a distillery, you've got to do the whole thing at once. So that makes it very difficult for the normal person like myself or anyone. You need a big, huge investment. I'm not saying that yours was not a huge investment. I don't mean that, but it's
was to me.
But do you know what I mean, Crafty?
Yeah, I get it.
Start with £8 million. You know what I mean? You can maybe start with like, I don't know, 1 million or 800,000 or something.
Yeah. No, look, you're right. I mean, I started Craftworks with the smell of an oily rag. Secondhand pumps, hoses that didn't connect properly, and I'm still like that. I'm getting better. I'm definitely getting better, but I think now.
Yes, he is getting better, but very slowly.
Very slowly, yeah. I learn things slowly. I don't learn from my mistakes, Rachel. That's for sure.
We were saying something about you can't teach an old dog new
tricks.
Oh, that's the one, yeah.
I thought Crafty was going to say, I don't learn from my own mistakes, I learn from other people's.
Yeah. Oh, yes, we do make a lot together. That's.
But yeah, there's the Australian spirits movement, and it is a spirits movement, is very, very dynamic, changing rapidly, definitely getting more expensive to get into it now. And there's a lot more regulation starting to come into play. So if I look at, when I started, which is only a few years ago to now, what it takes to get into it, to say 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it's totally different. It's totally different. But the industry is very collaborative. Supports. Yeah. We still see that. Supporting new people that's coming in, and it's good to be part of it. Absolutely, it's good to be part of this. So it's exciting. It's
Slange to that.
Yeah, slange. So I was going to move on to innovation, but just before I do, Luke, what are you drinking tonight, mate? What's in your glass?
So I've already finished off my my Starwood Fortis.
Starwood.
Speaking of the wine barrel cask, American oak red wine barrels.
Yeah.
I'm now on to, and I've almost finished my Kiloman, which the bottle's around here somewhere, Kiloman STR cask, and I'll probably move on to a Coro after this. I've got the Coro Mad Dog Morgan, which is matured in muscat wine casks.
There we are.
That'll be a punchy one.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah. All right, back to you, Rachel. So you talked about Scotch, the brand Scotch, and how it's important to protect that brand. There's a lot of value around that brand, and the brand is traditional. It's very, very traditional, as you said, Rachel. Is that, in your opinion, is that the general feel in the industry in Scotland that it's imperative to hang on to that? That's the first question. The second question is, there are people doing quite innovative things in Scotland. I got wind of Holyrood not so long ago and fascinated by their approach. So how do you think innovation is approached in Scotland with the bounds of Scotch?
Okay.
That's a double barrel.
I think there's two. I think there's two strata, Crafty.
Yeah.
One strata is craft in a small is not the right word, but in a more it's epitomised by people that the argument is like, where do you get the flavour from your spirit, right? So your big companies will say 70 to 80% is from the cask, and your people that are making whiskey from the outset will say no, it's 100% in the new make, and then it's 100% in the cask, because you do see people. I don't know why people argue about that, because there's no argument. It's like arguing between apples and oranges, because you either use what you've got, your water and your yeast, and you work out from them, and you create a product that is of these flavours, or you decide you want a product in this parameters, and you use the ingredients and you modify them to create this thing that you want, which is what traditionally, what is big companies kind of do, and that's why they say they want to make this kind of quality neutral, not too much flavoursome sounds with no flavour, but I mean not too much huge character of the new make, and then you bring in the cask influence. Or there's other people who are trying to work with different yeasts, different barley strains, that want to make the new make itself. So that's like doubly hard, because you've got to engage these jaggedy, it's all these flavours coming out of this, and then you've got to do it with the wood. So I think there's two stratas of distilling happening at the moment in Scotland and everywhere. So one is that you're either making whiskey to appeal to the big market, and you're going into new markets. So South America, Russia, India, blah, blah, like that. So you're producing more and more and more and more, or you're becoming smaller and more refined. Or, do you know what I mean? Like,
yes, understand.
So I think we'll start with Islay. So I would say Kilchoman is the smaller and refined, because Anthony, he has doubled the size of the distillery, because he's built a new still house that replicates the old still house, blah blah blah. But at the same time, it's still a small farm distillery, and Anthony's interested in making unusual things like the STR cask that Luke had. You know, he's growing different kinds of barley. He's got 100% Islay. I mean, I'm quite sure he's probably got in his mind that he's going to do an organic. I've not spoken to him about that, but I'm quite sure he will. So there's that. And I think that's an innovation in itself, that we're not expanding. We're keeping it tight and focusing on different, you know, growing different barley. He's doing barley trials, you know. Then I think another innovation, which is maybe not what you meant, but I think this is vitally important, and I think all distilleries need to think about this, is what Crafty are doing. Crafty are a B Corp company, right? And that there's only 3,012 of them in the world. And what's shocking, right? And what that is, it's a company that runs for the benefit of the community. Oh, like an old-fashioned company, I mean. Yeah. And so being a distillery that are running like that, Crafty, apart from all the things that they're doing, you know, with their innovation, with it, organics, their Islay barleys, they've got 22 farms growing for them in Islay just now. That's amazing, because our farming industry is very difficult, and the beef production is a way down. So farmers are lucky that now we've got this cereal product that we can grow for the distillery, because you're seeing, as you drive around Islay, you're seeing loads and loads of fields of barley, whereas when I was a wee girl, you saw loads and loads of fields of beef. It's changed.
Right.
So that's an interesting thing. But Crafty also have to be part of this B Corp. You can't just pay lip service and get this a thing. It's like an award that you live by your business practice. So they've got to be environmentally friendly, but that means psychologically environmentally friendly within your community. And I think that is innovative. And I think that all distilleries, all businesses should be working at them. And I very much admire them for being out in front with that. To talk about your point, innovation, I would say a distillery that I've got my eye on, and I think they're fantastic, is Nean. Have you heard of them? From the Arnhem Peninsula. I brought a bottle. Wait, and I'll show you. So they are a small craft distillery. It's run by women. It's not all women that work in it, but it's women that own it. So they're working Crafty with a thing that fascinates me so much. It's wild yeast.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. What was that distillery name again?
It's called Nean.
Write it down, Luke. I've never heard of it.
It's in the Arnhem Peninsula. It's very new, Crafty. Okay.
Yeah.
And
I'm Googling as we speak.
You need to about 40 years to get there. You know, it's a way out of the way. And this is their inaugural bottling, right?
Wow.
And I love the design of it, because they've designed it to make it accessible. The bottle, because we're used to large whiskey bottles, right? Like, for example, right?
Yeah.
And I thought the bottle had to be that size to hold the 70 cl. No, it's designed that way because it was kind of designed for men. I don't mean that in an offensive way, but you know, it was, the size of it was designed for men's hands, and you know, it was only thought about in the man's weight. It's come down by default.
Yeah, okay, that's an interesting view.
Whereas they changed that, right, and they made this bottle, and it's so accessible. It's all organic, right? It
looks very Japanese.
Yeah, well, yes, but it's like it's you know, it's kind of like softening the vibe a bit. I don't like to use the word softening, but it's not
beautiful.
And it's got the ribbon. Do you know what I mean? But this is organic whiskey, and this was the standard release. So this wasn't like a a special. You know, this was
Right.
the first release. So I'm very taken on with them, Crafty, and they're not. I mean, I'm quite bad about whiskey because I don't take anything in my whiskey, and I drink water on the side. You know, but I completely support anyone if they want to put Coca-Cola in it. I don't think that we should control what other people do. Who are we to say that the way that we perceive our drinking of it is superior? If someone enjoys the flavoured, who am I to say that the way I get the flavour based is more superior? You know, so I don't uphold that, dictated to people. But I mean, I do take it straight myself, but I want folk to take it any way they want. But their advertising campaign was something about a cocktail at 6 o'clock. You know, that was, so this is their organic single malt, and they're going, taking a cocktail at 6. You know, so I like the way that, I like this expansion of, it's like it's like an opening of the box of all the concepts that we hold without even realising we hold them, preconceptions. So I would say they're one to watch, Crafty. And I shouldn't be.
And unfortunately, it looks like we can't get it. Master of Malt is completely sold out.
It's very small runs.
Certainly one to look out for, and try and get on a list to get it.
Also, I shouldn't be telling you all these because I should keep them a secret. Now, I think you should interview Francis Crafty for your programme, because I think you and he on very well. I'll introduce you. So this is Francis from Daft Mill. Have you heard of Daft Mill?
Daft Mill, yes.
You know about it. Well, I mean,
never tasted Daft Mill, but I've heard of it.
God. It's one of the best whiskies in Scotland, and he is the only true farm distillery. I mean, Anthony calls himself a farm distillery, but he's a distillery on a farm. You know,
right?
But Francis, it's like in the olden days when you ran your farm, and then as part of the agricultural year, you distilled your excess barley. Well, that's what Francis is like. He only distills when it's suitable for the farm. You know, he's this distillery that was designed by Jim Swan. So Jim Swan designed Kilchoman.
Yeah.
So it's commensurate in size with Kilchoman. And it's amazing, you know. So I like because I like that concept that he's not running it all the time, because I mean, they're very exclusive, and he makes a lot of money out of them because he only distills every so often. But you know, he could be distilling all the time and probably making a lot more money. But I like how he makes it. It's just a thing that's part of so that's very old fashioned, you know. So I think that's really innovative, because he's the only one.
The Daft Mill was available from the Oak Barrel, one of our favourite places.
But just been sold.
All sold out.
just sold to Luke. Took the last 2 bottles, didn't you, Luke?
Sorry.
hard to get a hold of. Who else do I like? Well, I haven't been to see them, but I like how it's so small. Is the Thompson brothers up at it's on the Black Isle, and they made a distillery out of an old fire station shed. And that's 2 brothers.
Yeah, I've heard about that, and I've seen photos of it. And it is very, very small.
Yes, so I like that, you know, because it's like as though they started distilling in a cupboard. And I've not tried any of their stuff, Crafty, so I don't know anything about it, but I like that. I like that, you know. I think that more people should be doing that. I think we should be doing home distilling, you know. Why not? Who says? You know, I think it would be fantastic. So
I agree with that. I think Australia should adopt home distilling as well. Just quietly.
Well, in the past, everybody distilled. Why is it a thing? Do you know what I mean? You can in Italy, you can grow grapes and have your own wine. No one comes and says you can't do it. Why are we not allowed to grow barley in a field and have our own whiskey? I mean, I'm not going to start ranting about that.
No, just like nothing's likely to change on that front.
Show, no politics.
Now, we've had a question actually from my dad.
Bring it in.
Just looking at the organic influence on flavors, is the Nicnean peated, and does the peat need to be organic as well as the barley?
Well, peat really is organic because it is like thousands of years old before we polluted it with chemicals. You know, we've only been doing pollution since our generation, really. Well, maybe our parents, but so peat, certainly in Islay, you know, it's in the heather, so it's not cultivated land because you can't really cultivate peat. So it's like a neglected land. So it is organic of its own.
Are you going to run out?
Yeah.
Do you think there's a possibility of you running out of peat?
Well, peat is not a renewables resource, although people technically call it such because it regenerates at 1 centimetre a year, right? Or something ludicrous. So the people that want to make money out of it say, yes, it is a renewable resource, so we don't need to have, but other people go, don't be ridiculous, because you would need, you know, for it to grow like a foot, you would need like 1,000 years. So that's hardly renewable. But what we are doing in Islay is that we are changing the way that we use it, and we're maximising, minimising the use and maximising what we get out of it. So we don't dry our barley at all anywhere with peat. It's dried by fans. You know, it's only flavoured by smoke. Whereas, like in the olden days, that's why it was peated in Islay, because that was our heat source. You see, that's why we became famous for our peated whiskey, because it was peat that we had. We don't have coal. We're an island. How do you know, it's hard to get coal. So everyone burnt peat. So the whiskey became very, very peated because it was dried and flavoured by our peat smoke fires. Whereas other folk had coal, you know, like maybe Campbelltown or that, and Speyside or whatever. So nowadays what we do is we break it up into peat calf, and we just maybe put a you know, like a layer over the top like that, and it's very much damped down with cold water. They spray cold water on it because you don't actually want flames. You just want this smoke coming up like that. And they've got it, you know, they work it so that they only peat it for the shortest time they can to reach the levels of ppm that they want. That technology is really, they're paying close attention to that.
Yes.
So they're not extracting so much peat to achieve peated whiskey as they were in the past. The only thing is we are making a lot more whiskey. So, you know, but they are aware of it. So
and that peat, sorry, just continuing on with my dad's rapid fire questions. So that peat, is that from dedicated peat growing or peat producing areas, or is there also farming on top of that?
No,
and barley and whatnot. So then just extending to the organic side of things, if there is non-organic farming going on above the peat, does that factor into its organicness, I guess?
Yeah, you can't farm on peat, right? Peat is a dead thing, so you're not going to, you can't, because it's compressed, there's no oxygen in it, so you can't farm on it.
Right,
so,
you can't grow anything on it.
No. So, peat
so not even grass or anything on top, it's just dead.
It's not grass really that, not grass that animals could eat. You
right,
you
okay.
can't cultivate peat.
Yeah. So you can't have a simultaneous beef farm and peat.
No.
Right. Okay.
So you have your peat mosses here. It's like how you've got a cliff, you've got a valley, you've got a peat moss. It's a distinct landscape thing. Do you see what I mean? So you have so they're like moors, or in Australia, you know, the outback or something like that.
I guess it's like our desert.
Well, kind of, but yes, kind of. But people, yes,
but a lot
exactly.
wetter.
But people think that means that there's nothing there, but it's actually very, very, well, it's a carbon sink in peat. It's full of home to birds, nesting birds, certain insects, certain lizards and things like that. It's an ecosystem, and the planet would be very poor. Well, we couldn't exist, I don't think, without them, you know, because of how they feed into everything else, and they're part of the ecosystem, but they're not, you know, they are a thing of their own right, and you can harvest them. It's when you start, so the peat has been used naturally, domestically, for thousands of years. It's when you start exploiting something for commercial gain that everything gets buggered up, because you go out of harmony with what the landscape can harmoniously provide. You're bleeding it then, you know, and that's what we need to be very careful about.
And does Islay have any sort of programs in place for that specific thing, where obviously if there's been a huge whiskey boom and more peat is going to be needed, are there things that the government's doing or the regional councils are doing to try and I guess allay that or help?
Yes, there's an organisation called SEPA, Environmental, is it Scottish Environmental Protection Agency? I don't know what the S stands for. Maybe, you know, so they look at your assessment. You know, if you wanted to do something, how that would affect the peat moss. You know, they also take care of the extraction of water. You know, so that you're not bleeding the water table. They take care of it. But I think because of the nature of Islay, and because of what's happening to us now, I think there should be a dedicated SEPA for Islay, because we've got all these basically factories, because that is what they are. They are plants now. Plants growing, you know, plants not growing, but, you know, manufacturing plants, because they're manufacturing whiskey on this small area of land. So I think there should be an Islay SEPA or equivalent, because we're not the same as other areas, and we need to be looked at individually.
Yeah, that leads in nicely to my last question, and that's talking about Islay in the future, because as Luke just mentioned, you know, we're in the middle of a whiskey boom. The boom's likely to continue for some time. So the larger guys are looking at building more distilleries. And of course, Islay would be a target for sure, because of the uniqueness of what an Islay whiskey is. So what does everyone, in your opinion, think on Islay about the future of Islay and the industrialisation of Islay with more and more distilleries trying to set up on Islay?
I'm so pleased you used that word, Crafty, industrialisation, because that is what's happening to the island.
Yeah.
And people don't like that. They don't like that, because as soon as remember we talked at the beginning about why people love Islay?
Yes.
And I said it was like an old-fashioned community still, and it was people lived in the landscape, not on the landscape. If you industrialize a place, then it becomes suburban. It does not be what it was loved for. It changes. You know, your Gaelic consciousness is gone. So I'm very concerned about that happening to Islay. You know, people think, oh, this is great, let's make money where the sun shines, hustle, hustle. But what, you know, it's a feeling as well that people have, you know. So for instance, people like driving along the road, and everybody goes on about the Islay wave. I don't know if you've heard of it, you know. So everybody likes when you come to Islay that everybody waves to you. But it's because we think we know the card and we're just used to waving to everybody because we know them. And the place is becoming so busy now that at Bridgend, at the T-junction at Bridgend, you might have 7 cars in a row. Oh my God, I mean, that's just a nightmare.
7 cars. you need traffic lights.
You don't know any of them, you know. So while we like our visitors, we don't want to become like Skye, or worse, like Venice, which is being destroyed by all the people that come to it because they love it. And everybody loves Islay, so they don't want it to be destroyed either. So it's something that needs to be, we need to think about really, you know, deeply, I think. And also, I don't understand why a distillery would come here and then bring in water, have to bring in malted barley. Why build here? Why not build somewhere that would benefit from that, that's got the resources? It's not like driving to a place outside Perth, you know, that's easy to get to. Islay is bound. It is a, do you know what I mean? That, although we might have a dedicated ferry service, or you've even maybe got your own private boat coming in, Islay is different because it is an island. You know, it might be easy access, but you can't think about it the same way that you would think about Stirling or somewhere in Speyside, because it's different. So I hope people will pay attention to that. And I'm hoping that because of this COVID time, I don't want folk to go back to normal. I want them to go back to a new normal where they love Mother Earth and they think about the landscape, the community, the psychology, the heritage, all these things as we go forward. Not just a blind, all of us trundling forward making money, because what's the point of doing that if we ruin the beautiful thing that we've got?
That's beautiful words, Rachel. Beautiful words. And I know you're passionate about it. That's why I brought it up as the last question, because I thought it was a good way to...
It was terrible rant.
I can cut you off now. You can't rant. It's the last one. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Have you got any last words, Rachel? It's been a pleasure talking to you again. I mean, you've followed my journey right from the start, and I'm very appreciative of that. And battered ideas off you, and you've got your way with the Islay Whisky Academy, and that looks like it's going to go from strength to strength. There's just such demand for information, and I imagine you present it in such a format that is just easy to take in. And I would love to, at some stage in the future, come over for a week and just do the Whisky Academy, because that would be brilliant.
That would be fantastic. Yes, I hope you can. Well, I'm very excited about because of lockdown.
Yes.
And no visitors coming here. I thought, well, what can I do? So I created an online course called Whisky Affinity. And it's in segments, it's in volumes. So the first volume's been released, it's called Courting the Dram. And it's about Scotch in context, which is so important to me, that I want people to understand how whisky arises out of the land, the language, the weather, how it's connected to our music, our food. So all these flavour notes and patterns and structures can correspond to all other things. And so I created Courting the Dram to let folk experience that. So if any of the Australian people want to purchase that, you can buy it for 44 Scottish pounds on the website.
And what's the website? What's the address?
The website is islaywhiskyacademy.scot.
islawhiskyacademy.scot.
Yep, yeah.
And that's under the education section of the website?
At the moment, it's on the front page because the website's getting made, look, and it's a bit of a mess, so please excuse it. Because we're getting it revamped. So it's on the front page under like a blog post.
Yep.
Because it's all a bit dishevelled. So we're actually working on that, but oh my God, it's a huge project.
There's a big grey box on the homepage there. Online whiskey course, Courting the Dram.
That's it. That's the one. So they can just buy a credit card through PayPal, I think it is. And then it gets delivered to you within 12 hours through WeTransfer, which incidentally is another B Corp organisation like Bruichladdich. So it's WeTransfer is a good company.
That's volume one.
Volume one.
Volume
and
one.
that focuses on the whiskey, Crafty, and one's relationship with whiskey, how our body appreciates it. So we talk about biology and physiology, and then we talk about the dram. So that's what volume one is. But volume two is the one that I interviewed you. So Crafty will be in volume two. Volume two is Alchemy of Distilling. So that's production. So that's volume two. So that'll be maybe, it was meant to be the end of this month, but I think it might be a wee bit later.
Yeah, don't put yourself under pressure, not in these times. Yes. All right. Well, thanks again, Rachel.
Thank you, Crafty. And guys, lovely to meet you all. And listen, all the best, Crafty, and we'll be in touch soon.
Yep, we will. Talk to you later.
Thank you very much.
Slanjiva.
Cheers.
All right, that was Rachel. Rachel McNeil from the Islay Whisky Academy. A beautiful person, beautiful story. And it was a good one to share. And we'll leave it at that, eh?